What's going on, friends? There's a lot of parts out there on the market for your Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and every single one of those parts out there claims to make your motorcycle run faster, run cooler, jump higher, whatever they claim that your motorcycle is going to do even better than stock. But when it comes down to it, there are just some parts out there that do absolutely nothing for your motorcycle, or they're just not really worth the extra money that they cost. But on the other hand, for you throttle-by-wire guys, there are some parts out there that you might want to look into. Maybe you've been out on the interwebs or out to your Harley-Davidson dealer. There are all kinds of performance parts out there for your motorcycle. Some are great, some are absolute garbage. But one part that really gets me is the larger throttle bodies. And I know Harley-Davidson had pushed those really hard for a long time with your bike. Put more air in your motorcycle, you'll have more power, it'll go faster. But the thing that they neglect to mention to you about those is that not everybody needs one, and bolting one onto your bike may not necessarily do anything for it whatsoever other than drain your wallet. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, when it comes to larger throttle bodies, I know Harley-Davidson advertises their 58mm bolt-on throttle body. Yeah, bolt-on. But the parts that they neglect to mention when it comes to this bolt-on throttle body is that, one, you still have to tune the ECM. And if you read the fine print, it's going to say calibration required, ECM calibration. I like how they use the layman's terms there, like everybody's idiots. If you ride a motorcycle, you pretty much know what tuning is at this point. But the thing is that they neglect to mention the extra cost for that. That could be anywhere from another $200, $300, $400 on the motorcycle itself on top of the cost of the part. And the cost of the part is anywhere from about $400 to $500, maybe $600, depending on what you get. It's even higher if you get aftermarket parts. But if you're buying the Harley-Davidson part, that's about where the cost is going to lie. Now, we've already added in the ECM calibration cost into that on top of the part. The other part of this section that they don't tell you is that also the dealer installation labor, if you pay to have it installed. That's not going to be cheap right there. And don't worry, it gets absolutely worse when it comes to these throttle bodies, and I'm not even to the worst part yet. So the other part that they neglect to mention up front that is down in the fine print is that buying a larger throttle body, it is, as implies, it is larger. So with it being larger, hopefully you haven't already invested in an air cleaner that you like. Because if you have, you're probably going to be reinvesting in a new air cleaner because your stock air cleaner is not going to fit on that new throttle body. You have to buy a larger air cleaner for that. And once again, the other part is too, Harley-Davidson has kind of somewhat a limited selection when it comes to these larger throttle bodies. So the air cleaner to me is always the centerpiece of your bike, and you want to get one that looks good to you and basically ties your whole bike together with everything else that you've done. The issue with larger throttle bodies is that your air cleaner selection is very limited. And that's not just from Harley-Davidson. That's just about everybody out there. And I know you're probably thinking, sure, yeah, I could throw an adapter on there, whatever, make it fit. Okay, cool. You put an adapter on there to fit a stock air cleaner on it. Well, you just choke down the hole where the air's coming in. You're pretty much defeating the whole purpose of the throttle body. Now, this is the big part. This is the one that nobody really wants to talk, the elephant in the room, about larger throttle bodies. They don't do anything for your motorcycle unless you have a highly built motor. We're talking large displacement, big camshaft, ported heads. I mean, your heads are done to the hilt. You got a large free-flowing exhaust system on there. This is the only way you are going to see any significant gains out of a throttle body. So before you invest in their larger throttle bodies because they look cheap and easy to install, think about this. Your motor is only going to use so much air, volumetric efficiency. That is the rate in which these cylinders are filled with air. Now, depending on how big your cylinders are, your volumetric efficiency is going to be higher. They're going to need a larger cylinder fill. Your stock throttle body on a bike that has been mildly modified, or especially if it's stock, it's only going to use so much air. And if you're not even close to that threshold where your bike needs a massive amount of air to produce the horsepower that it was intended to produce, you are throwing your money away. You are washing it all down the toilet when you do this. Not only on the part, you might be wasting your time or your money, depending on if you have somebody else install it for you. And you're definitely wasting your money on the Screamin' Eagle tune, the dealer calibration, or the Screamin' Eagle tuner, or taking it somebody to have it dyno tune, only to pick up maybe 1 or 2 horsepower and torque. Maybe. I would give it that if it's on a completely bone stock engine. Now, if you have an engine that is just absolutely hot rodded and built to the hilt, that's a whole different story. If you have too small of a throttle body on there, you're actually going to be hurting that engine by not being able to flow air at the rate that it requires to make the horsepower that you intended it to make. So what constitutes an engine that is really going to need these larger throttle bodies to actually make the kind of power they're intended to make? So when it comes to twin cams, I'm looking at about a 120-inch motor up that's got the heads done, it's got a big cam in it. That's where you're really going to need these good throttle bodies and this high flow volume of air. Now, Milwaukee 8s, we all know, they already have larger throttle bodies on them because, well, number one, they're just larger from the factory to begin with, especially when you get into the crate engines like the 131, the 135. Yes, those can benefit from a larger throttle body. If you got one of those and you've already spent the big bucks, I'd be kind of looking at you sideways if you didn't go ahead and pop for another $1,000 to do the throttle body and do it right, get it tuned, and pick your air cleaner and get it all installed properly. It's definitely at that point you're actually losing power, but stock to mildly modified motorcycles, don't waste your money, don't waste your time. Now, the last thing I have for you guys today is for you throttle-by-wire guys. We talked about ECM tuning, and I did mention that on sport bikes, these motors, when you open the throttle on them, you're given RPM at a given throttle percentage at a given speed, you're not getting everything that you should be getting. If you're at 80% throttle at X speed, you're probably getting about 50% down the butterflies of what this bike should be actually giving you. This keeps the horsepower down, this keeps everything controllable at those speeds and at that level, and guys smarter than me came up with this and engineered all that, which probably isn't a bad idea. But if you've ever noticed there's a little bit of a throttle delay if you have an electronic throttle on your Harley-Davidson, when you're cranking it, you're revving it up and everything, you might notice a little bit of a delay there. You know what I mean. If you've ridden a bike that's got electronic throttle, especially like our cars and trucks today, there's a little bit of a throttle delay there. Now, one thing that I've seen from Vance & Hines that is very useful for you guys that have throttle-by-wire is the throttle pack. It's cheaper than the actual tuners, but it is worth everything if you have a throttle-by-wire bike. What this does is it goes in and it fine-tunes that throttle to you. Now, it doesn't give your bike any more horsepower or any more power or anything else. It just gives you more at a given throttle position at a given RPM, and it makes it smoother and operate much, much more flawlessly, which is it's so much easier to live with day to day. I can't even describe how much better it makes these. If you've ever done a pedal, anything with your throttle on your car, your truck, you definitely know what I mean. If you've done it to your Harley, you know what I'm talking about here as well. It gets annoying. Those little delays in the throttle on the throttle-by-wire bikes are absolutely terrible, and they will drive you nuts. And honestly, a lot of people probably don't even realize it's doing it just because they're so used to it, but it's not right. Now, throttle pack makes it right. It makes it smooth. It makes it operate where it should. It gives you that throttle opening position that you're commanding for when you want it, and not when the computer tells you you're going to get it. Now, I have to stress, the bike will feel faster. It will feel like an absolute rocket ship compared to what it was, but you are not necessarily gaining any horsepower or torque from it. It's just changing the way that it is delivered to you. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news for you throttle-by-wire guys, that there's just one more thing out there you gotta buy to make your bike absolutely perfect the way it should have been. But that's just the way they build them these days, and I'm just thankful that there's actually parts out there that we can buy on our own and not have to go to a shop to have it done. We can do it at home in our own garages and actually make these bikes the way we want them to run. Now, most guys, they don't even notice it or they don't even care about it, may not even ever thought about it. But if you have a throttle-by-wire bike, it's definitely something I would highly encourage you to look into. But as I mentioned, don't waste your money on those throttle bodies unless you have a really built engine. If your engine's not built up, don't worry about it. If it's pretty much stock to mild, you're just throwing your money away. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. I won't see you guys till after New Year's this time. But I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. You got some cool parts, and you're out in your garages right now putting them on, and hopefully you got some good weather to actually get out and play with them and actually enjoy them. But anyhow, guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But till next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars. I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.